How you doing, guys? Scott back with EBIKE. I got my switch, so I'm gonna try to get this thing in on the bike here. The battery master switch. It's a 12-volt waterproof key switch, but it's rated at over 100 amps, so I should have no problems safely operating with this. It has two giant copper lugs on the back, and as you can see, the nuts down there on the ground that would lock it in place. So I'm going to try to get it mounted. There's the bike, as you can see. I'll show you my turning meter. I epoxied it on top here and it came out pretty good. Hopefully once I have everything soldered in place and start working on the weatherproofing, it'll start looking a little nicer. But everything's in there. There's a couple other things that I need to take care of, like finishing up soldering my wiring. I'm also thinking about taking this fuse out of here just because it's bulky, and I'm trying to save a little space. As you can see, I left room for my shock to suspend and everything, and I could fit it in there, but I think I might put something else in the circuit instead of that, something smaller, so I can close it up and make it as light as possible. So I'm going to get started on this and get the switch soldered into place and see if I can turn this thing on. I'll cut the video back in once I have a little more information. Well, I'm glad I brought my work tools home because I needed the hacksaw. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten up those copper posts on the bottom. I'm going to cut them down drastically in size, and in doing so I'm going to reduce the weight of this beastly switch and hopefully fit it into the frame a little easier. So I'm going to get that thing cut and put it in place while my soldering iron's heating up over there. Alright, got the ends of those cut, shortened them up quite a bit, and now I got nice clean surfaces right on the back there. I think I'm just going to throw some solder onto it, put the wires on it that way, instead of having to worry about doing any crimping and soldering and ring terminals and any of that stuff. So let's see how the solder holds, and I'll kick the video in once I have some progress. Alright, and here's a picture of it soldered in place. Not the best solder in the world, but it's rosin core solder. It's on there pretty tight and everything's good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mount this up inside here on top of this battery pack, so it's kind of centered on the frame and nothing will be sticking out. And then I'm going to do some final solders and hopefully we can get this thing fired up. I'll kick the video back in once I have the battery wired in. Alright, I'm doing some soldering here, getting some progress done. I had to turn the bike around here to get these other two connections on my turning meter, so I figured I'd throw a little video in because most of you haven't seen the bike move from this stupid cardboard box. So hopefully after I get the two connections from this turning watt meter over to my controller here, get those soldered in, and those are the last two connections. And I'll turn the bike back around and kick the video back in. So I'm going to get working on that. Alright, well I have everything wired up now, and I have no clue where I'm going to mount this switch yet. As you can see, it's kind of just floating there with the 10 gauge wires on it. But as you can see, it's got this big key which I'm probably going to shave down in size. And you just give it a twist and it's on. And it's off. Oh, also you can see my turning meter pops up. Haven't charged the pack in a couple days, actually since I worked all week, but it's still sitting at 55.8 volts, and everything seems cool. So I'm going to take it for a test spin, and hopefully everything holds, and I'm pulling my 31.5 amps like I always am, and then I'll start finalizing the switch location. Here. Or 28, but because I'm using one hand on the bar, I go a little bit slower. But as you see here, let me get on it a little bit. here on the turning meter. 18 watt hours, 33.9 amps max, 1738 watts. Not bad. So everything's built in the frame, everything's operating, and it's the same strength and power as it was. That's a good sign. This is Scott signing out. Alright, just finished a little ride around the neighborhood. Now let's see what she says. 1.644 amp hours, 82.3 watt hours, 33.9 amps, 48 volts was my lowest drop, and it's sitting at 52.8. I'm going to throw this thing on charge and float it back up to 60.